You would be forgiven for being slightly confused by the Mini Paceman because it's not immediately obvious what it's actually trying to be. What this three-door only, slightly chunky coupe is trying to do is to take on the conventional sports hatch and sports coupe sectors, but with a bit of an SUV twist to set it apart. Key to the Paceman's success is going to be how fun it is, and actually it's not bad at all. Everything feels really heavy and firm, and that only gets more emphasised when you put it in sport mode, which is standard on the faster models. The steering in particular is really just a bit too heavy than you're ever really going to want it to be when in sport mode. Having said that, when it's in normal mode, the steering's nice and meaty and it's quite a pleasure to use just generally, and you can really make the most of the fact that the Mini corners pretty flat and with loads of grip. That tight body control does come at the cost of a pretty firm ride. It's very jittery around town in particular, but it does settle down at higher speeds, and I think most people would consider it acceptable given the Paceman's sporting intent. The engine range is very good. It consists of 1.6 petrol and turbo diesel engines in a broad array of power outputs. Most people will want one of the more powerful cars like this Coupe-esque petrol that we're driving here. They're still pretty economical by real-world standards, and the diesels are just very noisy and not as nice to drive really, plus being more expensive. Base models are available in front drive only, but you can get four-wheel drive on the rest of the range. Stick with front drive if you possibly can. It's just as fun on the road, it's more affordable, and if you're worried about all weather conditions, the front drive cars are still going to cope very well. It's all familiar Mini style in here, which means that you get a really cool looking dash that is a complete nightmare to use. Lots of the switch gear is not where you want it, and even if you opt for the media pack with the colour screen and the nav, it's not really very intuitive to use. Visibility isn't great either, because there's some pretty big pillars up front and in the rear. However, you do sit high up as part of the SUV-esque thing, which a lot of buyers will like. There's a good breadth of adjustment, and it is generally quite a comfortable place to be. Equipment is good too. Even the cheapest models get DAB radio, Bluetooth, USB input, air conditioning, rear parking sensors and alloys as standard. What is a problem with the Paceman is that it's way too easy to add thousands in extras. Even stuff like nav and leather that lots of people will want can cost you way too much, and then you can go to town with styling upgrades as well. There really is enough room in the back of the Paceman for two adults. Headroom could be a bit of a problem for taller people because this roof slopes down quite a lot. It makes it feel a bit claustrophobic as well. But for most average-sized adults, there's enough elbow and knee room that most people will get comfortable in here when they're wedged into one of the two individual seats. The boot in the Paceman's actually perfectly good for everyday light use. It's a bit of a narrow opening, which is going to be your biggest problem if you want to carry any big bulky items. However, the two rear seats do fold forward, which means you can get some longer items in, but leaves a bit of a slope, so it's not going to be all that useful. So the Paceman succeeds in offering a blend of style, practicality and fun that is a bit different to anything else out there. Just be aware that more conventional rivals can offer a more subtle, precise drive, definitely more practicality, and will also be a bit cheaper. However, if you do like the style of the Paceman, then the rest of the package won't disappoint. For more information, go to whatcar.com and search Mini Paceman, and whilst you're here, click subscribe and have a look at the rest of our videos.